She has written 2 books already and more to come. And she's an ordained pastor. And on top of that, she's now an ordained apostle at a very young age. She is also the visionary of Princess to My Daddy, a ministry, and which also happens to be one of the names for her book. She has so many things to her title, but I think for today, but I'm so excited and I'm super honored to have Pastor, should I say Pastor Apostle Consolata in the place. Actually, she's coming from her ordination service, is it? So Tisuta Twitter, her first audience is an apostle, an ordained apostle. So please, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome to the panel Pastor Consolata Kapuya as he comes. How does it feel like to be an apostle? Do you feel any change already?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm really humbled. I don't know how it feels. I just walk in it, but yeah, mixed feelings basically, like you're happy, but then you also know that the price, like the higher you go, the cooler it becomes, you know what I mean? Yeah, the crown does come at a price, so it's like I'm overjoyed, but also at the same time, it's like, God, please sustain me through this journey.
Wow, and by the way, should they know your age?
No.
Just know that she's a young lady who's burning for God, and I think even as you look at her pages, Consolata Kapuya on Facebook and on Instagram, as well as her ministry pages, Princess to My Daddy, you can see that this is a young lady who's been walking in her purpose. She's striving for more. If you can check, usually what I do and about social media, I don't just follow someone because they posted something nice today. I go back, my post 2018, 2000 in Jakarta. This one, like a post from 5 years ago, because sometimes you want to see if this person is here today, where did they start from? Before I say, wow, I like this person, can I relate to this person? Can I see a story of where God has taken this person from and where they are today? And I'm happy, ladies and gentlemen, that this is one lady whose story I've followed and I'm still following, and I'm excited to see what God is going to do in her life. Thank you so much for coming, Pastor Consolata.
Thank you for having me. I'm really humbled. This looks like what you call world wisdom and wellness. Like that's the trajectory.
Wow.
I'm prophesying.
I see
That's the trajectory. Really, it's beautiful what you have here.
Thank you so much. And just before we get into our discussion, when I got to know Pastor Consolata, she was about to launch her book, and she said, I want to have a discussion on Instagram Live. She just talked about the book. She sent me a copy of the book. I read through the book, and I was like, yes, I can actually have a panel on Instagram with her. So I'm happy to have her again, this time for Blossom Conference, and I'm so excited. So right as we get into the topic of the day, Blossom, what does blossoming look like for you?
For me, blossoming looks like really tapping into, like step by step, following God's original plan for your life. For me, it's all purpose related, because you can blossom in anything. But if you're not blossoming into the reason why you were created, at the end of the day, you can blossom in the wrong thing. You get what I'm saying? So for me, it's basically step by step, walking into what was written about my life, even before my birth, because God had an idea about me, right? He knew there was a problem that he wanted to solve. Therefore, he decided within himself to say, let me create someone who is called Consolata. She should fulfill such and such a purpose. So for me, Blossom is like, when I achieve level 1, now I'm moving to level 2. But all of that in just trying to get to that place where I can say at the end of my life, I've actually blossomed fully into my purpose.
Wow, I like that. And funny enough, you were mentioning what the previous panelists were saying about blossoming. They were talking about blossoming being a step-by-step thing. It's not an event, it's a process where you actually have to take one step after the other, intentional steps on towards becoming the best version of yourself, and in your way to say it, living in your purpose, step-by-step process of living in your purpose. And as a young lady who has written 2 books and more to come, what has been your drive? What has been your passion? I know you love the Lord so much. What has been your drive?
I can say I found my thing. I found the thing that gives me fulfillment. So whatever it takes, I'm gonna do. If I tell you that, of course, the Bible says that many are the plans that every man makes, but really in the end, the Lord's purpose prevails. But I will tell you, I have my 2024 calendar ready right now. Wow. You see what I'm saying? So for me, I would say that motivation, that fulfillment that comes from walking in my purpose, from knowing that I'm actually doing what I'm really, really supposed to be doing. And besides, like, you know, when you work for God, right? And you get feedback, which is unexpected. Not that I actually do expect feedback, but when I get it, I'm like, really? Was that helpful? It's kind of like, oh my God, thank you so much that I get to contribute just a little to the whole global mandate, to everything that God is doing on the earth. But like, just that drop of contribution that I get to make is really fulfilling for me.
And I think still also on that, what I find humbling is that you realize that God, in His awesomeness, in how big He is, He lives. How many people are there? Over 2 billion people in the world. He leaves the rest of those people and picks you as an individual for a specific task that only you can carry out. Saboteur, before you came to that, when you drop the ball, know that it's you or no one else. And I like that you have also mentioned, it's all about finding purpose in what God has called you to do. And that also includes making an impact wherever you are, like we had mentioned before you came. So I would like to know that even in your book, Princess to My Daddy, you went at length about finding purpose in God. What does that look like for you?
Finding purpose in God. I can't say there is one way to like find your purpose, right? Sometimes you may find it in your interest, sometimes in random things, but there is one method that always works, right? Maybe let's take a BMW for example, right? We can only go to the one that manufactures the BMW in order to be able to fully understand the functionality of the BMW. Sometimes you can have a BMW but not use it to its full capacity because you do not actually understand how it functions, like the full functions that come with it. So only the manufacturer of a BMW can create a manual for a BMW. So I was created by God, right? He is my manufacturer, He is my creator. So what's the best way to find out about my purpose? Is to go back to God. That's the best way. However, what I love about God is that, of course, sometimes He speaks through dreams, through visions, through audible voice, and all of these things. But a lot of the times, your friends who you spend time with will tell you, no, I think you're good at preaching. I think you make a good engineer, something like that. And note that you can be an engineer who is on fire for Christ. You can be a vendor who's on fire for Christ, who's still doing ministry, on fire for Christ in the streets. You understand what I'm saying? So wherever you're planted, that's where you're supposed to blossom. So a lot of times our friends will tell us, you're good at marketing, you're good at selling things. Like, there are people that can sell anything to you. Even an ant, they can sell an ant to you. You know, if they're intentional about it. So if you search deeper and deeper, you realize that person is probably called to be an evangelist. They can win souls. So sometimes God tells us things to do, gives us instructions, but sometimes we just decide to be like Jonah, to go to the opposite direction of where He's telling us to go. But if we did go to the place where God told us to go, definitely He will tell us the next step to take when we get to that place. You understand? So it's like, purpose is like a puzzle. It's not revealed in one day. I do not fully understand like where God wants to take me.
I like that.
But wherever I am, I'm going to make sure the puzzle piece that I'm supposed to put in place, I do put it in place.
Did someone hear that? Did someone hear that? Please say that again.
I'm saying purpose is like a puzzle. You never fully know like what the puzzle is supposed to look like. You don't know the fullness, the complete puzzle. It's not like the puzzles that we play, it's like a 1,000 piece. This is different. This is like a God thing. So once I put one puzzle piece, it almost becomes obvious that this is the next puzzle piece that I'm supposed to place on the. So until like we have to keep, putting the puzzle pieces. Hopefully by the time that we get to die, we would have completed our assignment. And maybe leave for the next generation to also, keep putting pieces on that puzzle. But our place is to just put our own puzzle pieces.
Wow, I really like that. You mentioned something to do with friends. One of the things that I realized some time back and have become intentional about it is the people that I also interact with online. And I'm glad that you're one of the people that I actually met online first before we met physically. So I'm quite intentional about the people I meet online, how I interact with them. One of the things that Mpumi Letwaba said, I know we have Mpumi fans here. One of the things Mpumi said, and it clicked with me, is that we have people who have gone before us. We have people who are around us, but above all, we have people who have walked the paths that we would want to walk in. And sometimes it's not about saying, I need to schedule an interview with Oprah. Right now, it's quite impossible. But Oprah's material is available for everyone. And you can consume it anytime and tap into her wisdom and tap into whoever you aspire to be. So how has that also, because I know you are someone who also follows these great people online, how has that impacted your life?
For me, it helps with me being exposed. Like, exposure is very important in our journey of life. So according to the level of your exposure, no offense to anyone, right? I know people always say, whether I learned at, I don't know, like a school somewhere deep in the Bundus, and someone will learn at Peterhouse, someone will be like, all of us are still getting into USET, we all have 13 points. Yes, you are all getting into the same program, but there is a certain mindset that comes with exposure, right? Where you're saying, oh my God, or someone who learned somewhere in the Bundus, if they are not exposed, if they don't intentionally expose themselves to maybe travel, to also see new places, meet people who speak fluent English or whatever it is, their idea of success may just be working for someone. Wow. Now, someone who studied at Peterhouse, probably they are thinking of building transgenerational businesses, like the Mikus, for example. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So I truly believe that we have been privileged to be able to have access to people that are not only in Zimbabwe, like America, Australia, everywhere around the world. So you get to see what God can actually do through you if you continue to walk on that journey. So for me, I would say the exposure is something that I really definitely do not take for granted. It has broadened my horizon of thinking, my mentality on the things that God can do through me.
Wow. You talked about building, how someone's background can also affect their vision. We talked earlier before you came about how God told Abraham that as far as your eyes can see, so shall I give you. So let's say I was not, I won't use the saying privileged enough. I think that would be the ground that God has given you. If God has given you that ground that you feel that might put you in a disadvantage, whether it might look like it's rosy for someone else, you know that everyone has a disadvantage that they feel they have. If you have that in your life, how best can you then now say, I want to go beyond, I want to blossom beyond this horizon that I have? How best can you do that?
This is a beautiful question, splendid question. So someone can be living in a one-roomed house, one room where there's your kitchen, your bathroom, your everything right there. It's everywhere in there. You understand? But what happens when you work on your mind is that even though you're still in a one-room apartment, is it a one-room apartment or one-room? Which one? When you're in a one-room, if you upgrade your mind, your mindset will force you to leave that place. Wow. For a long time, you may be there, wow, and you may feel like things are not working for me. But there's just this law that works that it has to match the level of your mindset, the level of your thinking. Wow. You cannot stay and remain in a one room when you are heavily exposed, when you're studying. I'm not just talking about studying the Word of God, but even in your areas of influence, right? In your career, you cannot remain at a seed level, at an entry level. Yet the information that you've acquired is like management level position. Wow. They will be forced to move you up, the ladder. You cannot remain there. There is no way. That goes against the laws, the principles of living in general. Wow. On the other hand, if, for example, you get $100,000 US dollars right now, but then your mindset is not the good, well-developed mindset. You are used to $1, $2. Now you don't have a vision. You will squander all of that money and come back to zero. Or even be at -0, because now you're trying to live at a higher level than you actually are in reality. So now you begin to live in debt. You understand what I'm saying? So mindset and mentality is extremely important. And how can you invest in your mindset? Firstly, we talked about exposure. Secondly, we have to read. I know we don't like reading. I don't know whether on the internet or YouTube, whatever it is, but just upgrade your mind. Make sure that you're always getting new information, always get new information. So today, for example, I graduated with a diploma, higher diploma, conflict resolution certificate, as well as, what's the other one? Marketplace ministry. So 4 certificates today. Instead of comfort, there is a letter that Paul writes to Timothy saying, please, I hear that you're coming. When you're coming, please bring my books with you. This is a man who has basically written the greater part of the New Testament with such a revelation. But he also still reads books. We constantly see references. Even Daniel read books written by the prophet Isaiah. Wow. So what's our excuse for not
these people? Now that you've mentioned, if you look at these people who are making a great impact in their generation.
Absolutely.
And you think that they know it all, they have it all, but they were still reading. Wow.
And also history repeats itself, right? So you can read history, you can study history to help you to not make the mistakes that were made in the past.
Oh, wow.
You would rather be the history repeater of the good things, not of the good things. So it's simply a matter of choice. To say which history is going to repeat itself in my life.
from this. Wow, thank you so much for that. I love that you also touched a bit on identifying where you are, being authentic enough to yourself, and seeing that this should not be my comfort zone, and aiming for more. And I love that you also have a book on authenticity. I guess that's why it came in. What does blossoming in your authenticity mean to you? What does it look like?
Oh my God, this is so good. All right, so for me, in every season, my definition of authenticity changes. What do I mean? How I was authentic in the last season is not necessarily how I'm authentic in this season. So with each season, there is a level of originality. Because when we're saying you're authentic, we mean that you're not a copy, but you're your original self, right? You're not copying anyone, you're not trying to be someone. You can be inspired by someone, but you're not trying to be them, right? So in each season, I found myself, even the people that were inspiring me to be authentic in the last season are not necessarily inspiring me in this season to be authentic. So it's like I blossom in levels of authenticity. What was authentic last year is not my definition of authenticity in this season. So basically we're saying to be your original self, to be who you really are. Not that you should slip. There are people who they say, try being authentic and they don't like. No. That's a different story. That's just laziness. That's different. But authenticity is to really be who you are in your comfortable skin, you know, where you don't feel squished and squashed because you're trying to be like someone else.
Oh, wow, I love that you also mentioned that you are allowed to change in your authenticity. What's authentic for you today might not be authentic for you tomorrow, because it's all about moving with each stage of blossoming. It's something that I took from Oprah. I'm still learning, but it's something that struck me that she said that you are allowed to change your mind whenever you need to. And sometimes changing of minds is not a matter of changing because someone said something. It's because sometimes something deep in you tells you that it's no longer time for this. And even though it was the best thing ever at a particular time, in that season, you now have to let go and let go of that thing and just say, I'm moving on to the next thing. And if anything, you shouldn't be ashamed of you changing. So in that way, how do you best go about change as an individual? Usually when change comes from an external force, you resist and you can actually reject it. But when it's coming from within now, how best do you deal with that? Because pressure there are consequences. How do you deal with that?
I think that's actually an advantage when it's from yourself, so you can work at your own pace. However, maybe I can just highlight to say, like when you move from one level of authenticity to another, there are wins and losses, right? Like I've lost many friends, you know, who are very near and dear to me because I had unlocked a new level of authenticity. Not that we wronged each other, there was anything bad going on or whatever, but you lose some friends, you gain some, you lose some mentors, you gain some as you go along the way. But I think at the end of the day, it's important to just know that God is with you throughout, right? Like you're not actually alone in that journey of authenticity. So just take it slow, take it at your own pace. You know, you don't have to post if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Yes, you can post the things that you want to post about. You don't have to post about everything. So yeah, just go along the way, do what needs to be done, but don't force yourself to like quickly, you know, transition while your transition season is not yet actually like set in stone by God. Because sometimes you're like trying to be like, I want to be this authentic person, but sometimes God wants you to be in that season for some time. So we also need to be discerning of that.
Wow, thank you so much for that. Earlier on you mentioned that you had actually you have actually planned your year 2024, and I know this lady right here is the queen of planning and vision boards and all that. Usually every year she has an event where people plan the year, she takes people through that. And I would like us, as we are blossoming, to have a bit of that. How do you plan your year with God? How do you do that?
Firstly, I would say I try not to plan according to my own thinking because it will be very depressing when things don't go your way. So I always inquire of God, really. I always do inquire of God, that God, what do you really want me to do in this particular year? So it's things that God has been really studying to me throughout the year. So here's the thing. God gives you a vision, but God also gave you a mind, right? So you can't say God has given me a vision. Now I want him to tell me the step by step, like call Nyasha to help you to do the decor. Like you have to think on your own to say, okay, this person can help you with the graphic designing, this one can help you with the photography. There's a part that you also have to play. So for me, God gives me a vision. I want you to do such and such and such. Now I sit down, I'm like, okay, this would be ideal to put in such and such a month. I think this person would be ideal to invite to speak on this event or whatever it is. So I do rely on God's provision, but there's a part that I also play in planning, in ensuring that things actually go, in an excellent way. Not to just sit and fold my hands because now God has given me a vision. We're talking earlier about how a lot of people are anointed, but there is no fruit that's actually showing that anointing. Sometimes it's because God has given you the vision, but there is no action that you're taking. Wow. It's similar to that thing where people say, I receive, but don't go and put in the work, right?
Only not I receive,
you will not receive anything. You see what I'm saying? So there's a part where we rely on God for vision, but there's a part where we also plan, we also put the ideas on paper. What I call the principle of documentation. You write down your vision. And sometimes it's just good to go back and say, but God really did that, So yeah.
Wow, thank you so much for that. And how important is it to plan your year? I think I'm one person who at some point had given up on the whole planning your year thing. I was just like, you know what, I've had enough disappointments. But now looking back, I think even learning from other women around me, other people around me, I realized that the people who I look up to, the people who I think are successful or are living in their blossom season, they all plan. And I think it's something that my boss at the back there is really meticulous about. And thank you so much for coming. He's really meticulous about planning things. The other day he was telling me, he was asking me, I thought, I want to host a conference, we are having a challenge. And he said, what are you doing towards that? I told him, I'm doing this. Then he said, you need to have every single detail of what you are doing regarding to the challenge. He told me, you need to know that if I wake up, I'm going to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. By the time I sleep, I should be at H. So that's it on planning. What's the importance really of planning?
I've realized that when you don't plan, like when you basically have no vision, yes, you fail. One.
Planning to fail.
Two, you actually live a very haphazard life. Wherever the wind blows, you're actually gonna go. Because you're standing on nothing. And people will take you wherever they take you because you have no plan. Let's go Kwamashwele, you're going. Let's go to Celebration Church, you're going. It's confusing because you don't really have a life plan for yourself. You haven't sat down to think, okay, how do I see myself? Because once you have the vision, then you can plan the steps to actually achieve the vision. Wow. But if you have no vision, you can't exactly plan for anything. So planning helps you to not live a haphazard life. I also realized that the times that I found myself depressed were the times I was living an unplanned life. Right? Where you're just like, so today I have no plans. You're going to start pondering on things that are unnecessary, that are in the past, things that you cannot change. You begin to worry, and before you know it, you are deep in this hole of depression, and you can't seem to get out of it. So plan to stay happy, to stay fulfilled. There's just that feeling that you get to say, I've achieved this, oh my God, I'm looking forward to the next thing. Rather than when you're just living a flat life, even if you're going to work. I think plan for work, yes, but also plan for your social life, plan for exciting things that are outside of work, that give you the excitement to say, okay, it's almost Friday, it's almost Sunday, or whatever it is. It just gives this sense of fulfillment and like, I'm really doing something with my life.
Wow, and I think you mentioned also something on having how planning makes you happy for the things that you have achieved, and also gives you the freedom to let go of the things that you can't control. So how best do you deal, say you have planned, right, and then some things don't go the way you planned them to, how best can you deal with that?
I cry, firstly. I definitely do cry. I don't want to be like, to pretend to be like, the Lord is my shepherd. Yes, He is my shepherd. But to be honest, I actually do cry about it. I believe a lot of things in my life, things that I've meticulously planned. But even if you meticulously plan, there's some things that are kind of out of your control. Let's say in the case of an event, it's very rare that things go exactly the way you planned them. A lot of surprises, shocks, and all that happen on the day. So I think surrendering to God, to say, whatever is going to happen, you have allowed it to happen that way. I think a state of just knowing that, God allows things to happen on purpose. I know sometimes it hurts, sometimes it's difficult to actually accept that. For example, you can plan to get married in a certain year, but things don't happen that way. Or you can plan to take your child to a certain school or whatever, and then that child dies. It's sad, but such things happen. I know it can be hard, but if we allow ourselves to grieve, whatever thing it is, not something as big as a child, but something as small as, I wanted Pastor Consolata to arrive at 12 o'clock, but she arrived at 1. You should cry if you want to cry. But it doesn't mean that you should stay in that place of sorrow or whatever it is. But pick yourself up and say, okay, God, I know that you allowed it to happen in that particular way. Maybe in that particular minute you were supposed to say something in a particular way, and maybe someone was late and they had to hear whatever I had to say. You understand what I'm saying? So just leaving it all to God and saying, Lord, whatever happened, you allowed it to happen. And surrendering to say, I don't know everything, but I know that you know everything. Because all of my days are numbered in your book, literally. You know the number of hairs on my head. So what could go wrong? If you know everything about me, I know that at the end of the day, you have my best interest at heart.
Wow, what I really got from what you said is that you are allowed to grieve some of these things that you feel like haven't gone according to your plans. While you have done everything to the last dot. I was telling one of my planners there, I said, Gata, you know what? I feel a sense of fulfillment with whatever was in my control. I've done to the last, and whatever is going to happen from now onwards, I have no control over it. And I like that you actually talked about grieving. You are allowed to cry, you are allowed to express yourself however you want to express yourself to God. With God, I was disappointed in this area. I thought I was going to be in this country by this time, but I'm still here. I can't deny one that something happened. I'm here, I'm hurt. And I think in our place of hurt, in our place of surrendering our feelings, our emotions to God, that is where God consoles us and God gives us His best. That's where God tells us His deep things. He gives us His strength. And thank you so much for that. I think for now I'll take 2 questions only for Pastor Consolata.
Okay, how do you identify God-given vision And is it possible to face challenges along the way? And how do you deal with challenges?
Thank you so much. So one of the ways I test myself to see if something is really from God, I give myself some time. You know, there are things that are exciting, like you are zealous. You know, zeal is like a fire that's like, and then suddenly it dies off, it dies off. So I actually give myself time to see, in the next 6 months, do I still want to do this? That's one of the very easy tests that I take to just say, is this of God? Or it was because I was inspired by someone and then I thought, let me do it, you know. So a lot of the times when we find ourselves doing things that we are not supposed to be doing because of zeal and excitement, it's hard. You'll be swallowed by a whale, right? But on the other hand, whatever purpose that God has created you for, you will still face challenges. There is a cross to carry. Wow. It's sad, but it's true. But I think also I just find comfort in knowing that there's a there's a prize at the end of this journey, right? To know that hopefully God will say, welcome home, well done, good and faithful servant at the end of the day. But a lot of the times I think it's important to acknowledge that we go through process. It's a process of refinement. I mean, Joseph ended up being the governor of Egypt, right? But initially, this guy, by his own brothers, we're not talking about like strangers or whatever, it's his brothers that threw him into a pit. Not only so, he was accused of rape and he was thrown into a prison. But one thing that's amazing about Joseph's story is that he still found favor even in prison. So when you're walking according to the plans of God, though it may hurt, but favor is always available. There is always, you know how when you are scratching a tough surface, when you are in God, when you're walking in your purpose, there's always lubrication that makes things a little bit easier. You always have that person that you know, if I try to this one, I feel better. Like God always makes a way that makes it better. Because there's just that lubrication. Compared to when you're swallowed by a whale like Jonah, you have to stay in that belly for some time. But if you actually just do things according to the ways of God, He always sends help. God will not leave you alone. It never ever happens. God makes sure that you're taken care of, your needs are taken care of. So embrace the process and always know that God is with you in it.
Wow, thank you so much for that. One last question. I guess it's all clear. Thank you so much.